103a, Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph.
We were discussing before about the tshuva at the Marshal. I'll just make a comment that I think the Gemara 101b, that the tshuva of Menashe was bakifin. It wasn't like...
yeah, we talked about that a little bit
That's
yesterday.
why you can argue that one is he did the tshuva, but it wasn't enough to give Mol Mabah because it wasn't sincere.
Yeah, we mentioned that because he was doing it only out of pressure and out of... Okay.
Plea bargain with Hashem, so that's why he wouldn't.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit yesterday.
Yeah, the 101b is more. This is more.
We are in the middle of the page.
Vayechater, Vayater, yeah, it's not a kativ in Kriya, it's just how you can interpret it, like Alti Kriya kind of thing, because the ayin and chet are similar sounding, especially for the Sephardim, it's similar sounding.
In the original pronunciation, they're similar sounding.
Yeah, it's not that in Pasuk. The Pasuk is written in Vayater.
Tshuva out of fear of retribution is still tshuva.
It's still tshuva, and
tshuva, but maybe what I forget which would say
the first actually the unnamed view.
He doesn't want that as an example for people to do tshuva going for eternity. That's not really the tshuva that we're looking.
No, the view that says he doesn't have a share in the world to come is basically telling the Baal Tshuva this is not the right way to do it.
Right.
Out of a threat and out of a negotiation with God. Do it out of love. That could be.
Hashem says, if you don't forgive me, what's going to...
Yeah, like he almost...
No, but in the idolaters, he shouldn't have said that. He should have said, I believe in Hashem, not that you're... So they said that basically his argument was like this, if you don't save me, then I'm going to say... the idols, and they don't better. That's not the way to think of Hashem. That's not the truth at all. Really, he's just saying, like, he believes in idols, okay, but if this is worth...
giving God ultimatum.
I'll go with this. He's like, he goes with the winner, basically. Yeah. Not as a function of... Not even true Mayura, so not even just like true at all. It's kind of it's a bargain. Yeah. It's like a kid's like those parents. You don't want to want.
That's why I think. Because of all that, that's why I think Rabbi Yochanan's argument comes from not the verse which says that he was responded to, but rather from the verse that indicates that he was doing it for 33 years, implying that you can't be doing that for 33 years. At some point, it's got to be real. Maybe that's why Rabbi Yochanan is relying on that verse.
Yeah, of course, others would say it's still 33 years.
Nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they don't have to read that verse that way at all. Anyway, okay, that's what we discussed yesterday at length. Thank you. Okay, we're in the middle of the page. The line begins with the word shahaya. And then there is biyadai limchais v'loi micha, and then we have v'amar Rabbi Yochanan. So we're further making statements about Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, who spoke in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, with respect to that era, the First Temple period, in the time when the Jews were degenerating into idol worship. So we're making comments about that era and the various different kings and various different verses. So here comes a very interesting passage. Rabbi Yochanan further stated, Meshim Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. My diksiv, what's the meaning of the verse? The verse reads in Mishlay, I believe. Yeah, Mishlay. Ish chacham nishbait es ish avil, a wise man who contends with a foolish man, viragaz, and he gets angry, the sachak, or he laughs, the ein nachas, he gets no rest. The simple reading of the verse is basically saying that if you're a wise person, don't engage with a fool. Whether either you're going to be getting upset or you're going to be laughing at the fool's foolishness, but either way you're going to get nowhere. It's a simple reading of the verse. You're going to get nowhere. Don't go down that route. Do what you have to do and move forward. Stop trying to contend with on a spiritual level, you can read this verse to mean that the wise person doesn't engage, at least not too much, with his evil inclination. Right, there's the famous line in Tanya, Misapik im novel, one who wrestles with the one who's dirty, Misnavel Gamkein also gets dirty. Right, so if you're wrestling too much with the Yetzer Hara, it rubs off on you. Either you're trying to outsmart your evil inclination, or you're getting angry at your evil inclination. Don't engage. Just engage in positive behavior and don't engage. It's a simple reading and the spiritual reading. Then there's the drush reading, which the Gemara is going to interpret to us now. The historical drush. The drush is, how do you say it? Exegesis. That's the word. Right? Extrapolation, maybe? Okay. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. So this is Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's reading of this verse in the historical drush kind of fashion. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, God says, Ka'asti al Achaz. I got angry at Achaz and figured I'm going to use the method of anger to try to get him to fix his ways. And therefore, V'nasat biyad malchei Damasek. And therefore I delivered him into the hands of the king of Damascus, figuring that if I put him under enough pressure, he's going to return to the proper way. Achaz is the king we've been talking about till now, who led the people into idol worship, or continued to lead people down the path of idol worship. But what happened in the end? Zivich v'kiter lelehem. He ended up offering offerings and offering incense, kiter is ketores, like the incense, to their gods. So he caved. He was delivered. He was captured by the kings of Damascus, but instead of the pressure bringing him to do teshuvah, he ended up serving their idols. Shneimar, the verse reads, "Vayizbech l'elokei dar mesek," and Achaz offered offerings to the kings, to the gods of Damascus, Hamakim boy, who were persecuting him. Vayomer, and Achaz said, "Kilekei malchei Aram," the kings of the gods of Aram, who were controlling Damascus at the time. Hey, Mazirim Oisam, they are helping them. Lahem Ezbach, so unto them I will offer offerings. Vayazeni, and they will help me. But Vahem Hoyu Lachshilo Lachol Yisrael, they ended up being to the detriment of him and all the Jewish people. So in other words, God actually made him get captured and be persecuted by the Damascus kings. Instead of realizing that it was God who did that to teach him a lesson, he thought, well, hey, the Damascus gods are so powerful that they want me. Okay, I'm going to go join them and then they're going to help me. Got the message wrong. So that's the first half of the verse, where the verse says, where the wise one contends with the foolish one, but in a way of getting angry. Now the reverse. Right? The reverse says, don't get angry nor laugh with the fool. Don't do either. Either one, you'll not get what you need. So that first version was God getting angry, as it were, with the foolish one, with Achaz, and it didn't work. So then God says the reverse. Okay. Sachaktim amtia, I decided to laugh, to shine my countenance, to behave properly with Amtia. Amtia is a king, also king of I think, is the son of Achaz?
No, it's the son of Yoshaphat.
Son of Yoshaphat, so king later, a little later. I looked this up before, but I forgot. Anyways, another king in Israel who did idol worship. Don't remember who he was. I'm sorry. So God says, I laughed with him. I behaved kindly with him, as opposed to the angry version against Achaz. Now the kind version. And I delivered, instead of him getting captured by other kings, I made other kings fall into his hand. So the kings of Edom fell to his hand. Now what did he do? He brought offerings to their gods. And bowed to them. Shneimar, as the verse reads, and it was when Amtia returned from having smitten, is that the word? Smitten the Edomites. And he brought with him the gods of the children of Seir, which is your Edom. And he positioned them as his God. Before them he bowed down. And to them he brought incense. So either way it didn't work out. God's trying to be angry at the king Achaz to try to get him to change his ways. It doesn't work. And then God tries to be nice to Amtia to get him to change his mind, and it also doesn't work. What this teaches you, that's the story. What this teaches you perhaps is something never talked about quite a bit, which is that the challenge of wealth, of doing well, is equal to, and sometimes more difficult than, the challenge of persecution in the spiritual sense. They both have their challenges. Right? During times when Jews were being persecuted, literally, it's difficult. It's difficult to be persecuted, and many Jews succumb to leaving the faith during Christian persecutions, Muslim persecutions, and whatnot. But today, thankfully, we don't have persecution, but one should not let their guard down because we don't have persecution. On the contrary, the wealth and the abundance that we have today, the freedoms that we have today, are just as enticing and alluring as the pressures of persecution. Perhaps to a degree even in terms of the spiritual allure of abandoning spirituality for the abundance of materialism is in itself very enticing, and one should keep their guard up. And that's kind of, I think, what the verse is saying. God's saying, I can put you under pressure, or I can shine at you. Either way, it's not guaranteed that you guys are going to change your behavior, and it's really up to you, is what God's really saying. I can make the circumstances such that there's persecution. I can make the circumstances, God forbid, and I can make the circumstances such that there's abundance. You're delivered into their hands, or they're delivered into your hands. And either way, the choice is yours to change your behavior. Neither of those circumstances are guaranteed. Right? Oh, if only I lived in such and such a time, then for sure I would be a different person. Not true. Either way, the results could be negative, or the results could be positive, and it's really up to us.
also a lesson, I think, for bringing up children. What the Pasuk left out to talk about love. It says anger, kind of humor the person along. It doesn't say about loving the child. That's what's missing.
That's a good point. If you're talking about children,
you can either be
too strict, or too permissive, and either way, it's not good.
Exactly. Because people, but didn't mention about love. That's what's missing. That's why it wouldn't work. You can't give in. You can't be angry. You have to work with them.
And they ain't nachas. So nachas here usually means there's no respite. But it could be there's no nachas. You get no nachas.
Exactly. So I think be too firm. I mean, they're too strict, rather, or too lenient. And
either way, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Yeah. You have to find.
Yep. So Amar Papa says, "Hanu de Amri Inchi." This substantiates the colloquial saying, which is, "B'chile lamar." There are cries unto the master. Woe unto the master. Deloya de chaychi lamar. Deloya de vele lamar. When people don't know when the master is smiling, and people don't know when the master is worried. In other words, woe unto such a master who, when he's engaging with his subjects don't recognize him neither when he's neither when he's angry, when he's crying, and nor do they recognize him when he's happy. And therefore they don't know between good and bad. When it's good, they don't realize it's good. And when it's bad, they don't realize why it's bad. Right? And that's the ultimate challenge. The Jew has to find the master in it all. Right? Woe unto the master. People don't know when he's upset, and people don't know when he's happy. And that's the challenge of the Jew, to find the master in whatever the circumstance happens to be. Recognize who the master is, where the master, see through the veil and see the master, and then you'll know the difference between good and bad. But if you don't recognize the master, woe unto that master. A lot to be said. Okay. Next verse with next teaching. Along the same lines. Also Rabbi Yochanan speaking in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Okay, the verse reads, this is when Nebuchadnezzar when he finally destroys the temple and he's entered into Jerusalem. And he says, Vayavoyu kol sari melech Bavel, and all the ministers of the kingdom of Bavel, of Nebuchadnezzar, they arrived into Jerusalem. Vayeshu b'shar hatoich, and they sat, shar hatavach, I should mispronouncing it, shar hatavach, they sat in the inner chamber, or in the inner gate, literally, or within the gate, something like that. So what is this middle gate? What's this inside gate that's referring to? Where are they sitting? These ministers, the consultants, the court of Nebuchadnezzar. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Yochanan said the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Mokem is the place shemachatchin boy, in which they carve out, or they cut, they slice halachas laws. So he's making a play on words, taking the word tavach, which means inside, to mean also a place where they slice. And they slice laws. Why are laws being called that which slice? Right? It's kind of a continuation to mention before, that when a person knows the master, they know the difference between good and bad. And that's what the law is. Not just halacha, but any law essentially is to carve a line in the sand and say, on this side of the boundary, you're within the confines of the law. On that side of the boundary, you're outside the confines of the law. That's what law does. It says this is right and that's wrong. We're talking about Torah law. It's not just the legal law that, by consensus we all got together and say driving over the speed limit is bad, but divine law, which says here's the line of the holy, and from here forward it's the profane. So it's called mechatchen. It's called cutting.
Yeah, actually the letters are the same. Is it?
The word tavach.
No, that hituch becomes chituch. You have to take the hay into a chet.
It's a play on words. It's a play on the words.
Yeah, so this chituch is there, but you have to change the hay into a chet.
So
even though the hay really is just a prefix, but using it with a verb.
So this is a reference to the Lishkas Hagazis. The Lishkas Hagazis was a chamber in the temple that was on the, if I'm not mistaken, it's on the right side of the courtyard when you first walk into the temple. If I'm not mistaken, it's the far right corner. If I'm not mistaken, could be wrong about that. But it's one of the chambers in the courtyard, which is called Lishkas Hagazis, and there the Sanhedrin sat, deliberated, and would carve out law. Machatchan halachas, they would carve out law. So the court, the ministers of the kingdom of Bavel, of Nebuchadnezzar, sat there. That's what the verse is telling us. And teaching Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Amar Papa said, Hani do Amri Inchi. This is the meaning of the colloquial saying, which is, Ba'asri de Mara Talile Zaina, the place where the master stores his ammunition, Taman Kulba Raya Kulta Tala. That's where the fool hangs his jug, or hangs his pitcher. Is to say, the same place where the master uses to enforce discipline, where he stores his ammunition, that's the same place where the enemies come and laugh and scoff and have their jug, they have their drink and have their party. So it's a similar thing kind of here, where Sanhedrin, the place which is meant to deliberate on morality, what's right and what's wrong, the ammunition as it were, carving out halacha, comes the Sanhedrin and sits there and says, everything's fine, everything's permissible, do whatever you want, let's have a party, let's have a good time.
Making a mockery of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In other words, there's one thing to say, look, the laws are difficult, I'm trying my best, I can't do it, I failed this time, I failed that time. But you're not putting a party there. You're acknowledging the truth of what the laws are, and just like every human being, you sometimes do a better job and sometimes you don't do as good as a job, like every other human being on the planet. But then when a person arrives and says, you know what, scratch this whole thing, let's just have a good time, there's the big problem. That's what perhaps it's talking about here.
Because
Sorry?
As mentioned in the Psukim, Isaiah talks about it. Let's eat and drink, tomorrow we will die. So those people who are not
nihilism.
Sanhedrin, then they went from nihilism and also for hedonism, for pleasure. So that's what the Gemara is going to be. The Sanhedrin should have controlled, people didn't. So therefore, now it becomes pleasure everywhere for the non-Jews, and the Jews suffer from the war and so on. Yeah, the failure of the leadership to maintain and control the people, right past, and the whole thing is destroyed then.
Okay, one more verse.
And what our enemies always do is they always go to the center, to the heart of our tradition. Beis Hamikdash and Hanukkah,
and make their point.
To make their point. They could do it outside. Why do they have to go in and do it?
That is the whole point.
That's the whole point.
The heart of where we are to make a mockery of it.
Yeah.
You want to show their view is right, and that's the Torah view is not right. That's what you want to show. Prove their point.
Scratching of God's name in the Torah, like
exactly.
Just to make the Kedusha,
What the Yimach Shema did during World War II.
Sure, burning books.
Mocking and scorning.
Sure.
In France also, some of the greatest pogroms began with burning public, burning the Talmud publicly.
Yeah, sure.
It's famous, so famous.
13th century.
Yeah.
Very famous, the public burning of the Talmud.
And now they say that maybe it might be collapsing. They're not sure if they can even fix it.
The church.
The Notre Dame.
Yeah. Or it burned.
Yeah.
800 years later.
Lots of history there. Those that aren't unaware think of it as anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, one more verse. Amar Rav Chizda, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Rav Chizda said in the name of Yirmiyah, son of Abba. Ma'id Ksiv, what's the meaning of the verse? Also in Mishlay. Yeah, in Mishlay, the Ksiv which reads, 2 verses in Mishlay, which reads, Al Sadeh ish atzal lavarti. At the field I passed by a man, a foolish man.
Lazy.
It's all lazy, yeah. Val kerem adam chasar lev, and I passed by a vineyard where a man is sitting lacking a heart, lacking empathy, lacking a sense of connection. V'hinei Allah kula kamshunim, and the whole place is covered in, I think it's thistles. It's like prickly flowers. Kasu panav charulim, and it's also covered in these plants that sting people. Can't remember what it's called. Bristles or something. Thistles, I don't know what it's called. But it's a plant that stings people. V'geder avanav nersa, and its stone fence has been destroyed. This is the verse in Mishlay. Dystopian vision of the world. So comments Rav Chizda in the name of Yirmiyah, son of Abba, as follows, breaking down this verse to explain what this is referring to. Al Sadeh ish etzel avarti. I walked by the field and I saw a lazy man. This is Achaz. This refers to Achaz. Achaz we mentioned before, the king who kept on leading the Jewish people down idolatry. Val kerem adam chasar lev, and I saw by the vineyard a man lacking a heart, lacking empathy, lacking sensitivity. Zeh Menashe, this refers to the king Menashe, who again we talked about before, as one of the people who lost a share in the world to come, at least according to one view, as we discussed at length yesterday, for keep on leading the people down to idolatry. Now, V'hinei Allah kulei kamshonim, when the verse says that I see that the entire place is covered in thistles, these prickly flowers, Zeh Amon, this is the king Amon, who I believe is Menashe's son. who kept the tradition of his father with the idol worship. Kasupan of Harulim, and then the verse continues and says, I see it's covered in these these plants that sting. Zeh Yehoiakim, this is the king Yehoiakim. He's actually a king of the south, of Yehuda, who also brought idolatry. V'ged Avon of Nersa, and the verse continues and say, I saw that the stone fence is destroyed. Zed Tzidkiyo, this refers to Tzidkiyo, even though he himself was a good king. But Shenecher Beis Hamikdash b'yamav, in his day, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. So this is the homiletic reading of that verse as a poetic way of describing what used to be, describing Yerushalayim as a vineyard and a garden that, first of all, it's lacking. It has lazy leaders, bad leaders, Achaz Menashe, covered in negativity, other leaders, and then the fence, which in and of itself might be good, but it was too weakened. Like Tzidkiyahu is a good king, but it was too weakened, it fell apart. And tomorrow, God willing, the Gemara is going to bring with us about certain midday, certain attributes that one should avoid. It's coming tomorrow, God willing. Okay, wonderful day.